Perfect. Moving right along. It's hard to believe I'm saying this, but we're on to our last speaker of Gather 2025 before we start preparing for next year Gather. So we're here alongside Jane Brennan. Hi, Jane.
Hi, morning.
Good morning. I know you've been here throughout the 3 days, I think, patiently
That's
waiting
right. No,
your
I've
turn.
really enjoyed. No, I wasn't waiting at all. I was enjoying all the presentations, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And Jane, you're
Um,
going to be talking to us about building a digital toolkit, maybe some tips and tricks for
yeah,
us.
yeah, it's just a really simple intervention that we've come up with at MTU that might be worth other people thinking about because it seems to have worked well for us anyway.
Perfect. It's always good to
So,
hear examples that work.
yeah, yeah, and don't take too much,
Effort.
planning and effort and funding and,
Yes.
and all the
Yeah,
rest.
definitely.
Yeah,
Perfect. So I think,
so
yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready, Jane. Thank you.
lovely. Okay, can you see that now?
Perfect.
Lovely.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
thanks very much. Okay, thanks for holding on, everyone, to the bitter end here. I'm not going to keep you too long, but I just wanted to share this really simple intervention that we've made at MTU that might be helpful for others. I'm on the Kerry campus of MTU. It's what used to be IT Tralee. It's relatively small. We've only 3,000 or so students. And my role is study guidance facilitator, so I cover academic skills support for all students across the board, but also I cover assistive technology as well. So it's the combination of those two roles that has really led to this development. If I can move my slides on, it might help. Okay. Yeah. Now, I don't know if there's anybody here. I haven't seen anybody else much here who's of my vintage. I'm not that old, but when I did my undergrad degree, this is how we used to have to look for information. We went to the library, we had access to the books, the printed material that was in the library, and we found what we wanted through using a big bank of card indexes. We had no online information. Everything was there on site, and it was organized in this way. And similarly, editing of writing looked a little bit like this. This person was actually lucky. They had a typewriter. Mostly we hand wrote our assignments. Then we had to edit them, make all the changes and write the whole thing out from the top again. And you might go through that process several times. So it was very time consuming and tedious. So the point of that really is that for all of us, the technology has made an enormous difference to academic reading and writing. It's made it faster and more efficient for all of us in terms of information search and retrieval, the information that's available to us, possibly too much even these days. Word processing is enormous development, proofreading support, referencing support, and so on. These are really amazing developments for all of us. And look, obviously, as you've been hearing over the last few days, and as assistive technology has really changed the landscape for students with literacy impacting disabilities. And we have text to speech to text, line focus, screen tinting, immersive reader, and all the other things that you've been hearing about in the last few days. Also, the distinction between assistive technology, which is specifically designed for people with disabilities, and general technology is becoming much more blurred. And I think several people have alluded to this over the few days. So technology that was designed for people with disabilities has gained a much wider application. For example, text to speech might have started off aimed at people with disabilities, but I certainly use it sometimes. Some of my colleagues use it, and it has a wider application. And likewise, technology that was designed with a general application has been really important for people with disabilities. And I think there was talk of Otter.ai there, and that was designed for meeting notes for a general audience. But I believe that the deaf community find it exceptionally useful. And similarly, I suppose the spell checker and Grammarly, these proofreading tools, they're designed for everyone, but they're especially useful for people with disabilities. So this is all really positive. So what's the problem? Unfortunately, technology hasn't solved all our problems, or maybe fortunately. These issues have been mentioned by different people over the conference. First of all, students entering university and then progressing through university have very different needs from what they might have had in school. And I've actually just recently completed a piece of research on secondary school teachers' experiences of trying to implement assistive technology in the classroom. And it became very clear to me that with the best will in the world, teachers cannot facilitate students to use assistive technology as freely and in the same way that they might use it as they progress through the system. They're also doing very different things when they start university. The work is different and it goes on and things go on changing. Individual students are very different, and I know Trevor mentioned this on the first day that every student has very different needs. They have different profile, they might have different educational background, they have different needs to use the technology for, and personal preferences. A technology that works perfectly for one student might not suit another student at all, even though they appear to have a very similar profile. So it really is a very individual thing. Students can have a lack of awareness of what's available, especially if they're coming from the constraints of the secondary school system. They don't know what's out there, they don't know what they can ask for. And I frequently meet senior students here, show them a piece of technology, and they say, why did nobody tell me about that in first year? If you don't know something's there, you can't go and look for it. On the other hand, they can be overwhelmed with what's available. There's so much out there, so many software, so many apps, so many websites, and they're all clamoring for our attention. They watch study influencers and what do you call it, aesthetic notes and all of this. There's so much being fired at them that they can just become overwhelmed and they can't go and identify what would be actually most useful for them. Sometimes they can have a poor understanding of the integration of tools with their learning processes and how they can use them most effectively. And I think this is the true of all tools. Tools can be wonderful, but you have to know how to use them, when to use them, and to understand the bigger picture and the process that you're using them in. If you gave me a set of state-of-the-art construction tools and asked me to go and build a house, I'm afraid I'd still be stuck. So the tools are not enough on their own. They have to understand where and how to use them. And they also have to understand the limitations of the tools. An example of this is a student I met recently who had enthusiastically adopted speech to text and written a huge long assignment using it, but he hadn't realized that he had to go back and check what he'd written on regularly and after writing a small piece. So he'd written screeds and screeds, and it was incomprehensible to his lecturer, to me, and also to himself when he finally did read it back to himself. They do need to understand that the tools aren't perfect and that they have to take personal responsibility as well. Oops, sorry, I've gone too far. At MTU in Kerry, this is the approaches that we've taken to technology guidance for students. We started off with assistive technology assessment and training was only provided for students with disabilities by an outside provider who would come in, meet students, assess them, give them the training and go away again. And that was fine, but eventually we integrated the assistive technology into this study guidance service, which is a universal academic support service for all students. And that means really that it's taken away some of the stigma that's attached to assistive technology, and it also allows students to follow up later if with other queries or with technology queries if they come up. So that's how we work with students one-to-one. But we also felt that students who weren't referred and who weren't coming to the service might also benefit from learning about some of these tools. So we developed an elective workshop called Build Your Digital Toolkit that was aimed at first years. And we offered that on both of our campuses and online. Now, Unfortunately, our students are so heavily timetabled and they're so busy that it's extremely difficult to get them to attend elective workshops. And the attendance was, we probably expected it to be, but it was disappointing. Relatively small number of students attended those sessions. So what we've done in the last couple of years is that we've offered this workshop, Build Your Digital Toolkit, to lecturers so that it can be offered as an embedded workshop within timetabled, scheduled time for first year classes. And that's what I want to tell you about now. So the aims of this workshop are basically to raise awareness of what's available, not everything that's available, but what's most likely to be immediately relevant. Sorry, excuse me. Teaching just in time is really important for all students, that they learning something that they can apply immediately rather than something that they have to remember for the dim and distant future. It's also to raise awareness of follow-up options. So if they try something and they want some more advice or they want study guidance in general, they can follow up with me. And having seen my face in person, it's a really helpful contact. I think this is really important. It's non-stigmatizing support for students with disabilities, including students who may be undisclosed or undiagnosed. And we have quite a lot of students who may have dyslexia, ADHD, whatever, and they've either never thought of referring themselves to disability services, or they've chosen not to. So those students will be sitting in classes and they can still, from this workshop, they can get that level of support and then they can follow up with it if they choose to later. It's fairly brief because it's only a single hour workshop, but the idea is to give the students a better understanding of the effective use of tools and how they integrate into their learning processes, how they use them as part of writing assignments and so on. So really this is just flagging up the main pitfalls of each of the tools so that they can avoid that. And it's also to open lines of communication with academic staff. I think it's really important for support services to be working alongside the lecturing staff and to be singing off the same hymn sheet. So that was a further aim there. So just to go through the workshop content very briefly, the two main sections are tools to support academic reading and tools to support academic writing. And the idea is to keep this really simple, not to overwhelm students with too many different options. For text to speech, we've recommended over the last few years the app Natural Reader. I know there are dozens of ways of doing text to speech. It's everywhere. It's inbuilt in all kinds of things. But the reason we're using Natural Reader is because you can use it across everything. It's not connected to a particular browser or particular website or anything, or particular text type. You can use it with everything. And it's got a lot of different ways that you can use it. You can use it online, you can download it to your device. Anything you read is saved into a library so that you can then have a mobile app on your phone and you can continue listening to your readings from your phone in the car, on the bus, whatever. And there's also a browser extension as well. So there's lots of different ways to use it, but it's really easy to use and the free version is very quick and easy to set up. So Natural Reader. Then the line focus tool, which is a browser extension called Visor. If you haven't seen it, it's very easy to find, Chrome extension Visor, and it's a real simple tool. All it does is shade the page. You can change the color, you can change the size of the window that it's showing you, but it stops you losing your place on the page. And that's surprisingly popular, actually. There's a lot of students that find that tool very useful. And the last one for reading this is actually the only paid one that I show them, and it's maybe not for first year, but it is a very useful one. Readwise Reader is an app in which students can save things that they want to read. So they have them all in one place and they can go back to them. It's a really nice, clean interface for reading, and they can add their own notes and highlights and tags. And it also has an AI feature so they can interact with the text using that as well. But that's really is one maybe for second year and on. Then for tools to support the academic writing process, Our students have Office 365. Some of them have come from using that at school. Some of them have come from schools that use Google products, and some of them maybe not tech familiar at all. We just try and point out the features of Microsoft Word that they may not have come across before, in particular the dictate and the read aloud. Immersive reader as well, but I think dictate and read aloud are the two main features that we'd highlight with Microsoft Word. Then proofreading support. So Grammarly, the free version of Grammarly is fantastic for supporting spelling and grammar. It also has an AI rewording function now. That I'll talk about AI in a moment, but they need to use that judiciously, but it can be helpful. Mind mapping software. Now, personally, I'm a big fan of mind maps, but I have to do them on paper, and I think most of our students are the same. But there are a few that prefer to use digital mind maps, so I'd show them Xmind, although there's dozens of different options for digital mind maps. And finally, I'll show them the referencing software Zotero. This again is not one for first year. We encourage students to learn to do their referencing themselves first before they start to use the software, because if they don't really know what the reference is supposed to look like, then they won't know when the software gets it wrong. We encourage them to do their referencing by hand in first year, but to be aware of the referencing software that they can use so that they're not spending hours and hours on referencing as they go up through the following years. So those are the main parts of the presentation. It's impossible really to talk about technology without talking about AI. So I do briefly talk about the AI chatbots, the various forms of them. I suppose we're all a little bit at sea on what we can and can't do with AI. So the main advice is for writing assignments, you follow the advice of your lecturer. But there are then uses that they can make of the AI that certainly are uncontroversial. So they can use them for simplifying difficult text. They can use them for generating practice questions. They can use them almost as a personal tutor for concepts that they're finding difficult. And I think it's important actually to touch on AI, because some students come into us wanting to use AI for everything. Other students come in knowing about it but being terrified and never going near it, and others in between. So there's a lot of inequality. So I think giving students as much guidance as we can is really important. And then depending on the group, might touch on note-making apps. Generally, most of our students prefer to make their notes by hand, but some of them like the apps, flashcard, quizzing, and tutorial apps. In particular, if there's maths-based courses, there's a few supportive websites and apps that might be useful for them there. But really, the tools for reading and tools for writing are the main parts of this presentation. These are the groups that we've delivered this to in the past academic year. You can see there's a good spread of different courses, and we're trying to promote it further to cover as many first year groups as we possibly can. But it certainly has grown. So the first we tried it, we had maybe 3 or 4 classes, and it's been requested by quite a few more lecturers since then. The feedback, I started off doing Mentimeter polls. The session was relevant and helpful to me, got an average score of 4.5, so that was pretty good. Academic staff have looked for repeat bookings and requests for follow-on workshops for more senior groups. So that's really is a positive thing, because I spend a lot of my time trying to chase academic staff to work with me. So having them chasing me is a real plus. And then recently I've given up on the Mentimeter. I just do a show of hands. Who here has seen something new today that they think might be useful to them? And that is almost always 100% of hands go up. And that's usually including the lecturer if they're sitting in on the session as well. So I think the feedback has been really very positive for something very simple like this. So next steps is we've started this actually looking at CPD sessions for academic staff on talking to students about digital tools so that they're aware of what's available for their students and they can advise them as part of their normal teaching. And follow-on workshops for more senior students. In particular, the referencing software is really important for the more senior students, but other follow-on workshops as well. So I think that is all I had. These are my contact details, and I would love to engage with anybody who'd like to discuss that further. But in the meantime, any questions or comments? Are any of you doing similar kind of initiatives? How do you provide technology guidance for students in your own institutions? I'd be really interested to hear back from you.
Very good, Jane. Thank you so much. And great kind of synopsis and letting us know there's so many options out there. So it's really good to hear what your experience has been. There are a few questions coming in the chat there. So let's see. Scott is wondering, out of interest, why did you give up on Mentimeter? They're looking at integrating something like Mentimeter or VBox. So just he's wondering your experience there.
Just because time is so short, and it's just much easier to get, much easier and quicker to put hands up. I'm not saying I don't use Mentimeter, but in this particular case, I only have an hour. We have the session to do, and a show of hands is just quicker than having them go get out their phones.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Just leave it open. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or the Q&A or raise your hand. We can let you speak. Let's see. Solomon there's saying it's interesting to enable learners to choose and pick the tools that meet their learning styles. However, introducing a few tried and tested tools can also save time. I think that's very true.
Yeah, it is very individual, but I also meet students one-to-one, and for most of the assistive technology, I would meet students one-to-one and discuss with them what their needs are and listen to them and show them things. And yeah, it's so individual though.
Yeah.
And I've sat down with students, particularly, let's say, the note-making options. So we have an option of LiveScribe Pen or Glean for students who want note-making support. And all students, I show those two options. And without exception, every single student has a very strong preference for one or the other. Some of them really prefer the LiveScribe, some of them really prefer the Glean, and you couldn't anticipate which would be which. I think students really they intuitively know what will work for them and for their learning style and their particular needs.
Yeah, and I think that's been a common theme throughout the 3 days is it is such an individualized thing.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but at the same time, reducing that burden of choice and not drowning students with a huge amount of ATs.
Oh, there's so much out there, and
Mm,
the whole internet is designed to grab our attention. So if you're
yeah,
looking for technology, it can be very confusing. So cutting through some of the jungle of stuff, I think, is helpful.
definitely. Yeah, I think your presentation helped with that today.
Great.
So thank you so much for joining us, Jane.
Thank you too. Thanks.
And somehow, believe it or not, that was our last speaker of Gather this year. So just want to give another huge shout out, first and foremost, to our funders, without whom we wouldn't be here today. So a huge thanks to Solus. Another huge thank you to all of our presenters. All of these presenters have volunteered their time to be with us today. And I think it's been a really valuable couple of days. I think we've learned loads, practical takeaways, as well as big picture and policy work as well. So it's been a wonderful 3 days. Just once again, all of these sessions have been recorded and they'll be made available to you all. We've also created a short feedback form. So if you do have the chance to fill that in, let us know what you enjoyed, what you'd like to see more of next year. And then also stay tuned on our LinkedIn and on our social platforms and on the Ahead website for Gather next year. I think it was such a successful event. We'll definitely see if we can grow it and expand it to next year. And lastly, just a huge thank you to the Ahead team, particularly Danielle, who is seated right beside me, cringing, who's done a wonderful job organizing all of our speakers and sessions over the last 3 days. And we look forward to seeing you next year. And thank you once again to all of our speakers and everyone who attended.